Welcome to the League. Welcome to another episode of The League, a DBNC business talk show where bold ideas meet bottom lines and doing business in Nigeria moves from potential to playbook. I am Coach Lindauneze, your host. On today's episode, we'll be exploring how we can reduce overtime and increase output. And we are joined by a very special guest. But before I introduce the special guest, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Chioma Mbanugo. Hi, Chioma. How are you today?
I'm doing very well.
Always nice to see you. I'm great. You look amazing.
Thank you. So do you, as always.
Thank you. Thanks as well. So today we'll be having a very special guest, a business leader, an expert, an investor, an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur actually, someone who has worked in the oil and gas sector for over 2 decades and has worked in the finance space for 2 decades and a half. Join me as I welcome the CEO and founder of EnergiHub, Olatunde Akintola.
Thank you very much, Linda. It's good to be here, and it's good to see you, Chioma.
Very good to see you as well, Tunde.
Thank you very much.
Amazing. Let me just put this. I always like to say this because I like to brag about our school. Shout out to Manchester Business School, you know.
Yeah.
Tunde is also an alumni of the school that we went to, you know, so it's great to have you, Tunde.
Thank you very much. Like we say in Manchester, original thinking applied.
Free advert.
I think I'm putting in an application now.
I can see Val
time
saying
to go back to school.
at the background, you know. You right? You know, Tunde, before we, delve into the topic, I'm just curious to know, you have been in finance for over 25 years, What made you, move from finance to now being a founder in the oil and gas sector?
Thank you. I think I get asked this question a couple of times, and that's because you probably find more of engineers, petroleum specialists trying to, do this. In my course of working in the oil and gas space, I didn't sit back with the books of account, balancing account, and trying to, produce financial statements. I was the fusion between the finance people and the finance department and the technical people. And what that does is that it helps to create a fine balance between the numbers and the operation. And I fell in love with that. Because we were able to do some phenomenal things, some of which you might get to talk about in this conversation, I realized that it can only get better when finance or technical people just venture a bit, because some of this engineering space actually do have opportunity for non-technical people, just like me. And what happens when we work together with them, you actually become one of them. And you are able to spotlight what some of them will actually miss. And when you do that and work in sync, you can actually create magic, which we have done a couple of times.
Creation of magic, original thinking is being applied.
Absolutely.
Chioma, do you want to join the league?
Yeah.
You're in the league, actually. So Tunde, I think in your sector, right, downtime is one of the biggest hidden costs. So from where you sit, what do you think is probably the most common cause of non-productive time, NPT, in Nigerian projects, and how is EnergiHub helping to solve that?
Like you rightly said, NPT is a major industry problem, and not just the oil and gas space, even in construction, but oil and gas particularly makes it a bit more difficult because it's a multidisciplinary function where you have sometimes up to 50 different contractors doing different things at the same time. And that simply means that when one is not able to chip in rightly or perform their functions correctly, it affects the entire project. There is something called the critical path. There are some that you can still go on without, but when a particular function or service is on the critical path and it's not being able, you cannot deliver it as at when due, you can't stop other things, you can't stop other costs from running. So essentially, you have people earning what you call their day rates without actually having to get the job done because some other things is in their way.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So still on managing and executing projects, we're seeing IOC divestments, in Nigeria now, and a lot of the assets is shifting to indigenous ownership. So what are you seeing specifically in terms of challenges, in terms of gaps, and how prepared do you think that we are, locally here to fill those gaps or meet expectations?
Very, very good question. Thank you, Chima. Whether this year or next, Nigeria will be 70 years old in the oil space. Mm-hmm. So which means that Nigeria itself should not, at this point, after so long of playing in oil and gas, should not be in the space where we're worried about IOC leaving. We shouldn't. However, this is where we found ourselves. And IOC leaving is actually more blessing than causes. A lot of people for political reasons say, IOCs are leaving, people are leaving Nigeria. But really, Nigerians should be able to fill in this space. And I think that's exactly what is happening with the likes of Renaissance coming on, Seplat, consolidating their foothold on ExxonMobil assets, Oando, stepping up and all that. And I think we should have many more of local players, taking hold of this space and actually showing that Nigerians are not inferior in terms of technical know-how, in terms of ability to lead, to execute, and to to run oil and gas businesses. Where our challenge has been is in manufacturing, is in engineering, because you need a lot of equipment, tools. We should be a hub at this point where we actually support oil and gas businesses from Africa. And I think just having the ownership and the running of these big corporates shift to Nigeria should be backed at this point by local production engineering to ensure that we can actually make some of this space. We can support the industry, not just from ownership point of view, but from the real support for the industry.
I like that. So talking about support, EnergiHub, you refer to yourself as Nigeria's first oil and gas equipment clearinghouse, right?
Absolutely.
What does that mean in practical terms, and how are you helping organizations cut costs and meet their deadlines with your model? I
think the reason why the company is called the hub in EnergiHub is actually the question you just asked me.
Okay.
When we started out about 7 years ago, what we planned was to say, the very nature of oil and gas project means that you will over-prepare. You should over-prepare for every project. Yeah, if your material requirement says 7, you are actually going for 10. In case there is a failure, in case there's, sometimes you might be going for 12. So, but when this operation is finished and you are concluded, this particular operation, and it's not every day that you drill, it's not every day that you are building a new pipeline, it's not every day that you are building a new flow station. So there are times you finish this particular project and you have materials that are excess. So you find oil and gas companies putting all this in their warehouses, and some of them are spending 5, 10, 15 years. In fact, in the process, some of them get out of fashion because there is no clear path as to how this asset can be converted to cash, because you are not exactly a trading company. So what we try to do is to create a transparent model where some of these assets can be either leased out. Of course, by the time you're loaning it out and it's coming back, you first and foremost make a margin on it. Second, it can also be tested. You can do your, testing of the equipment and be sure that they are still in class, then you bring them back to your warehouse. And there are instances where you have excess materials, you have no need for this, drill pipes for foreseeable future, and you just want to sell them. There should be a transparent model, and that is what EnergiHub is bringing to the space.
It was nice to hear that when you say it's not a bad thing that we're having asset ownership, from moving or shifting to indigenous companies, and that we have the minds to run this. We have great minds. In terms of strategy, we have the know-how to do what needs to be done. But something that we know is that, project failures in Nigeria don't necessarily stem from, bad strategy or, misguided strategies, but more from operational breakdowns. It's either logistic delays, spares are missing, poor maintenance. So what do you think? What role do you think that smarter equipment sourcing and real-time support can play in helping, to have seamless projects, just getting results?
It's very correct. And one of the things we also need to understand is that logistics, it's the backbone of every industry. Whether you're in farming, and you hear that 30%, 40% of farm produce don't get to the table. Whether you are in transportation, whether you are in manufacturing, whatever it is that you are, and oil and gas is not insulated from these vagaries. The only difference is that it gets compounded in oil and gas, because now you may be talking about a few millions of naira in manufacturing or a few millions of naira in farming. But now in oil and gas, you're talking about these numbers in millions of dollars. You almost cannot prepare. There are millions of equipment parts that we actually, that can go out of service, that can fail during an operation, either on the rig, on the flow station, on the FPSO, and all that. And we try. And when I say we try, I'm talking about the industry to have, spares. I feel that Nigeria needs to be alive not just to our responsibility for ourselves as a country, but for the entire sub-Saharan Africa oil sector, to ensure that we have smarter logistics. Smarter sourcing simply means that you don't have to stock all the items that will possibly need, but within a short period of time, you can get it to where it is required. And what I said EnergiHub is trying to do is also something that will help the industry, because some other people are sitting on this item that another operation needs, and these people know that they will actually have no need for this in any near time. So if we are able to have some sort of repository of all spares, it's a big ask for people to say, open your warehouse to us. Let's just have. We're not taking these items, but we know that when these items become required and is urgent on another project, we can shorten the lead time and ensure that projects can run as efficient as possible.
I'm just wondering, because what you just talked about is quite capital intensive. Am I correct?
In terms of, yes, it is capital intensive. However, what we're trying to do is capital intensive when you look at it from the country point of view. But from our own operation point of view, it is tech intensive, really, not just not a lot of capital, because all we need to do is to be able to mirror what people have, what companies have in their warehouses in terms of operation, and especially excess spares, to be able to mirror it so that when they are required, we can shorten the lead time between need and actually delivering it to where it is required.
Okay, interesting. I've been saying interesting all through today. I feel like, what you're doing, a lot of people need to hear about it, and organizations who may require services might be, listening in as well.
Absolutely. I'm sure they have seen our proposal one time or the other. So it's time to get on board. Absolutely.
Right. So there has been a lot of movement along the coastal highway. We've seen, a lot of refineries opening and some activities going on right there. So what do you think might be, potentially opportunities for local providers here in Nigeria, not just for local providers, but also for technical partners in this new energy phase?
Like I said earlier, Nigeria is opening up. For instance, our first step to energy sufficiency was done last year, thanks to Olatunde Akintola, doing, that monstrous project that a lot of people doubted, ability to bring it. And just a couple of days ago, some big announcements were made that, had potential to shake the downstream industry, and everybody's asking, are we safe? There are a plethora of opportunities, not just across the coastal road, but, in every industry at this point. The reason being that for instance, in the CNG space, we are talking about Dangote announced 4,000 CNG trucks. Prior to that announcement, I'm aware that we have about 2,000, trucks and buses, and I think there's another order for another 1,800 to be delivered next year. So this is a lot. All this will need support at some point. They will need repairs, and they will need replacement parts. They will need. So that's when you do not just think about it in a linear fashion, and you wait for 3-4 years as to what exactly will happen in the industry. You can already tell where the opportunities will lie.
So would you also say that a lot of organizations are ready for the new phase of opportunities that will be opening up in that sector, in your sector?
I wouldn't say a lot of organizations, because I'm not privy to a lot of organizations' strategy.
I like that.
And I'm not privy to it. However, earlier in the year when we had our own strategy retreats and plan for 2025, 6, and 7, we already plotted a few things that we must start, by Q3 2025, that will, mature by Q1 2026 and all that. And I believe that it will be a bit arrogant to think that you are the only one that is doing it. Everybody has a plan. I believe so. So basically, when you look at the rig count in Nigeria is almost at all-time high. As at now, in the last 10 years, we haven't had this so much rig count. A lot of rigs are being either repaired now, or they are coming to Nigeria and all that. Our rig count is quite impressive right now. I think the last time we had rig count this high was in 2008, 2007, 2008. So that simply means that everybody understands that oil and gas in Nigeria. For instance, companies that want to do a quick walkover now need a rig. They wait 6 months, 1 year to get the rig to work. Unlike before that, you can get the rig in 2 months, because they are there. Not a lot of people is doing drilling and exploration and all that. But now the story is changing. Since 2024, it's been difficult to get rigs, and that means that there are a lot of activities going on in our upstream space.
With these increased activities, you would need increased, businesses, that provide solutions. And when you look at Nigeria today, even beyond Nigeria, building trust has always been a challenge. But in Nigeria, with local vendors, there's a particular, adverseness, for lack of a better word, that you would see organizations, show. So what would you say that EnergiHub is doing differently to earn the confidence of major contractors and indigenous operators here in Nigeria?
Looks like you're looking at our
your
strategic
output
direction.
From your strategy session.
It looks like you're looking at one of the things we set out to do is to, and I think it is also enshrined in our vision, is to be preferred service provider, is to be a preferred partner, and exactly what we're doing. We, as much as we want to work with a lot of companies, our target from day one is to be on the preferred list. And that is the yardstick by which we measure ourselves. Of course, there have been instances where there were, service failures or the client expectation are not met, and we have a whole lot of process to that to service failure remediation. It's, in fact, I think it's even more difficult for us. We are more excited to want to remedy service failure than to provide service. It's that heavy as remediation process, and it's something that everybody we track. Once there is service failure, and we track that very, very hard. And the reason is because when we work for people, we build trust quickly. Because we are in a country where people hardly can you hold people to their words, and that's something that we don't want to have in EnergiHub. And it's not because my word is greater as a CEO. No, it can be difficult for us to make a commitment, because whatever we commit to is because we exactly want to execute it just like we. And there is a plethora of a lot of people and companies that wouldn't do what they say they would do, even when they sign agreement. But it's not same for us. My legal people understand that once something is signed, then I'm coming back to say, check, is this part of it? Is this part of it? Because I don't want to fall foul of. You can go to courts and manipulate your way and win a case, but you can't win the client back. And what we want is partnership that endures, is repeat businesses and all that, which is exactly what we have now. So, when you mess up just one act, you can lose everything. And that is not what we want to do. We are not just trying to do business, we're trying to build a legacy. So,
talking about building legacies, right, and having repeat customers, that means quality has to be top-notch.
Absolutely.
Typically, right? So, when supply chain stretches beyond a country, sometimes you have to source last minute. Some businesses will struggle with maintaining quality all the time as a result of that. So how is EnergiHub balancing speed and quality in your environment, like offshore drilling and flow station construction?
As of today, or what we're having this conversation, we're monitoring some supplies that are coming from Miami. And because the number of days that we have to deliver on this equipment is so short, and we've given our awards to the client. So instead of us to bring this equipment in through the easier and the cheaper route of putting it on the ship and it gets here in X-ray, we're having to air freight this equipment because they gave it to us and they told us that the reason why we're giving you this is because of your delivery timeline. So how sad will it be that we won the contract based on our delivery timeline, then we do not deliver on that same timeline? That will be deceptive. And that's not one of the things we want to be known with at EnergiHub. Whatever we have to do to support our clients, and I think they also know it, and they are rewarding us with more work, because knowing that we are committed to ensuring that that operation does not come to a stop until the plan and the execution is executed according to plan, and it says, okay, this time it comes to a stop. But until that time, we ensure. And if it becomes practically impossible for us to meet, we also communicate ahead of time. We don't wait until the last minute to say, oh, sorry, we cannot. We communicate ahead of time, and we give options to say, you know what? If you can still wait for this timeline, if not, these are the other options that we can kick in. And our clients are happy for that.
So that's doing what is humanly possible to ensure speed without compromising on quality.
Absolutely.
I'm just giving you a punchline now on EnergiHub. You can use that.
Is this from Manchester business?
You're feeling haunted by this Manchester thing, right?
Okay, so Tunde, for Nigerian entrepreneurs or investors looking to enter your sector, the oil and gas sector, where do you see the most underserved opportunities right now? The
underserved part of the industry is actually, equipment manufacturing in country. The NCDMB, the Nigerian Content Monitoring Board, have done a lot, to ensure that a lot of content, a lot of percentage of the contracts that come out of the industry are, executed by either a Nigerian company, but ultimately, a vast percentage of this input still come from abroad. And that's where, and NCDMB is 15 years since its establishment this year. So, but the area that we need as a country, and this probably is even beyond NCDMB, is to ensure that we can start manufacturing key parts. We need to begin to do heavy-duty manufacturing from here. It is not something that is fast, but it's something that needs to be done. It's not one of those projects you want to use to score political points of something that was done in 100 days or 2 years. But as a country, we need to move to a point where we can actually produce, parts, equipment to support the industry. I know there's a lot of buzzwords around renewable energy, alternative energy, and the rest. But oil and gas is going to be here for foreseeable future. It's going to be here for the longest of time. The contribution might reduce or wane over time, because even the wells by their very nature also go up and come down and quit at some point. But we should invest heavily in supporting the industry. That way, we will not just be Nigerian content by cliche, but in reality. Then we can have maybe 50% or more retaining in the country as against fleecing these funds out.
You've just given someone out there an expo in your sector.
Absolutely.
There's someone taking notes. So thank you for sharing that today. It's been interesting talking to you. I've had a great time, and I'm sure very insightful, So before we let you go today, I would just like to ask you one final question, right? If you're in a room filled with overwhelmed entrepreneurs and you have 120 seconds to say something to them, what would that be? And this time I'd like you to look into the camera and speak to someone listening to you out there.
Gentleman or lady, yes, the road may be tough, rough. I'm sure there are a couple of times you've thought of quitting as well. But I'd like to tell you, it's going to be well worth it. You may have to change your strategy. You may have to look in a different direction. You may have to look for new partners. You may have to dig more, but do not give up. I'm saying this from a personal experience. I know how many times we had to, change strategy, restructure, and do different things. In fact, change personnel. We've done this over time. But over time, you'll find the formula that works. Don't get stuck in how you used to do things. Don't get stuck in the people we used to do things together. What I can tell you is going to be worth it. So don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you today. Thank you. For me, one key takeaway is, change. You mentioned that, because a lot of people think that quitting can also be doing something else. The moment you start doing something else, people think that you've given up on your dream. So sometimes you can change even your services, even your business, even your strategy. You can pivot. You can do something else, with better potential, or where you see opportunities. So that's something I'm taking with me that you just said.
My final word would be, most of the time we want a change. But the real question to ask is this: what are the kind of people that do what I want to do? And when that profile, when those people do not reflect the current you, then you need to first become that person that does the things you want to do. Then the work becomes easier.
And on that final note, we have come to the end of today's episode. I'd just like to say thank you once again, Tunde, for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I had a good time.
And thank you, Choma, as well, for doing this with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for joining. We hope to see you next time. My name is Coach Lindauneze. See you soon.